That's perfectly valid if it's just for entertainment. If you can entertain and educate, that's better. And if you can entertain, educate, and elevate.
Mel Gibson built a reputation as one of Hollywood's biggest stars through movies like Braveheart, Lethal Weapon, and the highly controversial The Passion of the Christ. His films dominated the box office, earned major awards, and constantly pushed cultural boundaries in ways few actors or directors dared to attempt. But everything took a shocking turn in the summer of 2006. Just hours after finishing a major interview, Mel's night spiraled completely out of control on the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. What should have been another routine celebrity media appearance suddenly exploded into one of the most infamous scandals Hollywood had seen in years. People everywhere started asking the same question: what exactly happened that night, and how did one of the industry's biggest stars end up at the center of a public meltdown that damaged his image for years? Long before the headlines, Mel Gerard Gibson was simply a kid growing up in Peekskill, New York. Born on January 3, 1956, he was the sixth of 11 children in a loud, packed Irish-American household. His parents, Hutton and Anne Patricia Gibson, raised the family with strong traditional values and deep ties to their Irish roots. Even Mel's unusual names came from Irish saints connected to his mother's hometown of Longford. Talent and ambition seemed to run through the family. His grandmother had been an opera singer, while his grandfather built serious wealth through the tobacco business. But the Gibson family's future changed dramatically in 1968 after Mel's father won a huge workplace injury lawsuit worth $145,000, an amount that would equal well over $1 million today. Instead of staying in America, Mel's father made a bold move and relocated the entire family to New South Wales, Australia. Mel was only 12 years old when his life completely changed. The move was not just about money either. Reports at the time suggested his father also wanted to keep Mel's older brother far away from the Vietnam War draft. Once settled in Australia, Mel attended St. Leo's Catholic College and quickly adapted to his new life. Before long, people around him started noticing something different about the young actor. He had natural screen presence, confidence, and the kind of charisma that instantly grabbed attention. When Mel finally entered the acting world, critics wasted no time praising him. Legendary film critic Vincent Canby reportedly compared his energy to a young Steve McQueen, while others saw shades of classic stars like Clark Gable and Humphrey Bogart. Hollywood quickly realized they had found a new leading man. Mel exploded onto the global scene with films like Mad Max, Gallipoli, and the hugely successful Lethal Weapon franchise. Suddenly, he became one of the biggest action stars on the planet. Still, Mel refused to stay trapped in one category. Even after reportedly receiving encouragement connected to the role of James Bond, he turned it down because he wanted more creative freedom. Instead, he jumped into serious dramas like Hamlet and commercial hits like What Women Want. At the same time, he slowly transformed himself from actor into director and producer, creating massive projects like Braveheart and Apocalypto. By the early 2000s, Mel was viewed as untouchable in Hollywood. But before all the awards and fame, Mel was still a struggling acting student trying to survive. He studied at the National Institute of Dramatic Art in Sydney alongside future actress Judy Davis. Early on, he took whatever work he could get, even performing experimental theater roles while trying to break into film. His first movie paycheck came from Summer City, where he earned only $400. Soon after, he landed the lead role in Mad Max for just $9,000. Nobody expected that low-budget Australian action movie to completely rewrite independent cinema history. Even after filming Mad Max, Mel still lived like a regular struggling actor. He reportedly shared a tiny apartment in Adelaide with his future wife, Robin Moore, while balancing theater performances and small television appearances. He stayed loyal to stage acting for years, eventually performing with Geoffrey Rush and later appearing opposite Sissy Spacek in theater productions. Hollywood finally came calling in the mid-1980s. Mel made his American breakthrough in The River before completely changing his career with Lethal Weapon. His role as Martin Riggs turned him into one of the most in-demand actors in the business almost overnight. By the 1990s, Mel was dominating theaters everywhere with movies like Forever Young, Maverick, and Ransom. He even voiced John Smith in Disney's Pocahontas. Then came 2000, when he reportedly earned a record-breaking $25 million paycheck for The Patriot. At the height of his fame, Mel suddenly grew tired of being a celebrity. During press interviews for Signs, he admitted he no longer wanted to live as a traditional movie star. Instead, he focused heavily on directing and building his production company, Icon Productions. That decision led to some of his biggest successes. Braveheart won him the Academy Award for Best Director, while The Passion of the Christ became one of the most talked-about films in modern history. Shot entirely in Aramaic and Latin, the movie shocked audiences with its intense violence and emotional storytelling, eventually earning over $370 million in the United States alone. Mel followed it with Apocalypto, another ambitious project that pushed audiences out of their comfort zone. But while his directing career was reaching new heights, his personal life was starting to collapse in public. Over the years, Mel became involved in several explosive controversies tied to angry outbursts, damaging recordings, and public scandals that shattered his clean Hollywood image. In 2010, after leaked recordings connected to arguments with his former girlfriend surfaced publicly, his powerful agency William Morris Endeavor reportedly dropped him almost immediately. Hollywood insiders began distancing themselves fast. Mel was even removed from plans connected to The Hangover Part 2 after backlash from members of the production team. The same actor once earning $25 million per movie suddenly found himself taking smaller villain roles in films like Machete Kills and The Expendables 3. Still, Mel refused to fully disappear. Over time, he slowly rebuilt part of his reputation by directing the acclaimed war drama Hacksaw Ridge and later returning with projects like Flight Risk. He also expanded Icon Productions into a larger distribution company and worked as executive producer on the surprise 2023 hit Sound of Freedom. Mel Gibson's story became one of Hollywood's wildest rises and falls, filled with massive success, public scandals, career collapses, and shocking comebacks that few people saw coming. But while Mel eventually found a way back into the industry, the actor at the center of his most controversial movie faced a completely different outcome. The release of The Passion of the Christ changed Jim Caviezel's career forever, and not in the way many people expected. When the film premiered in 2004, audiences were deeply divided. Some praised it as a powerful religious masterpiece, while others attacked it as overly graphic and deeply offensive. The non-stop controversy only made the movie bigger, turning it into the highest-grossing R-rated film in American history at the time. Behind the scenes, however, critics and religious organizations accused the film of encouraging harmful stereotypes and giving extremist groups material they could misuse. The backlash surrounding the movie became so intense that many people connected to the project faced major career consequences almost immediately. Many critics argued that The Passion of the Christ focused more on shocking audiences with brutal violence than accurately telling the story of Jesus. Scholars and religious experts quickly pointed out that several scenes in the movie never actually appeared in the Bible at all. Even though the film was marketed as deeply authentic, Mel Gibson added dramatic moments that changed major parts of traditional scripture. Right from the opening scene, the movie takes a dark and disturbing turn. Jesus is shown praying alone when a creepy cloaked version of Satan suddenly appears nearby. Then a giant snake crawls across the ground before Jesus crushes its head beneath his foot. The scene looked intense on screen, but none of that ever happens in the New Testament. The movie also leaned heavily into horror-style imagery to make viewers uncomfortable. During the brutal whipping sequence, the camera suddenly cuts to Satan carrying a pale, eerie-looking demon baby that smiles while watching Jesus suffer. That disturbing image was completely invented for cinematic effect and has no connection to any biblical text whatsoever. Even the crucifixion scene sparked huge arguments among historians. The film shows Jesus dragging the full wooden cross by himself through the streets, but many historians believe Roman prisoners usually carried only the crossbeam, not the entire structure. Scholars have also debated whether victims were nailed to crosses the way the movie presents it, since Roman executions often involved ropes as well. People also questioned the movie's historical accuracy in smaller details. Jim Caviezel portrayed Jesus with fair skin and polished features, while historians believe a Middle Eastern man living 2,000 years ago would likely have looked very different. The costumes raised eyebrows too. In the movie, Jesus remains partially covered during the execution scenes, but Roman crucifixions were historically designed to publicly humiliate prisoners completely. Some scenes looked even more out of place. Jesus is shown speaking polished Latin to Roman officials, despite historians believing someone with his background would have known only limited phrases. Another flashback shows a young Jesus building a modern-style dining table, even though families during that era usually ate sitting on the floor. These details may seem small, but critics said they revealed how much Hollywood drama had been added into the story. The biggest controversy surrounding the movie centered on accusations of anti-Semitism. Critics argued the film unfairly portrayed Jewish characters as cruel villains while downplaying the political role of the Roman authorities. Religious leaders warned that these portrayals risked reviving dangerous stereotypes that had existed for centuries. The backlash became even more intense because Mel Gibson himself later faced public criticism over offensive remarks involving Jewish people. Many people pointed out the irony that Jesus himself was Jewish, yet the movie barely focused on that fact while framing large groups of Jewish characters as aggressive mobs demanding punishment. According to reports, several major Hollywood studios refused to distribute the script because they feared the controversy surrounding it. That forced Gibson to personally finance and release the project through Icon Productions, making the film an even bigger gamble. As criticism exploded, the movie's publicity campaign added even more chaos. Rumors started spreading that Pope John Paul II had watched the film and supposedly responded by saying, "It is as it was." Supporters used that quote as proof that the Vatican approved of the movie's accuracy, but the situation quickly spiraled into confusion. The Vatican later released statements trying to calm the controversy, but their response only made things messier. Church officials confirmed the Pope had seen the movie, yet they refused to officially verify whether he actually made the famous comment. That uncertainty fueled even more debate across television, newspapers, and religious communities worldwide. At its core, the film became known for its relentless brutality. Huge portions of the runtime focus almost entirely on graphic scenes of Jesus being beaten, whipped, and tortured. Some critics argued the violence crossed the line into horror movie territory rather than spiritual storytelling. Audience reactions inside theaters became legendary. Reports described people sobbing uncontrollably, fainting during screenings, and even becoming physically sick. One widely reported incident involved a woman in Kansas who suffered a fatal heart attack during the intense crucifixion sequence. Legendary critic Roger Ebert later called it one of the most violent movies he had ever seen. While the controversy made Mel Gibson extremely wealthy, it reportedly changed Jim Caviezel's Hollywood career forever. Before taking the role, Caviezel had been viewed as a rising leading man after movies like The Count of Monte Cristo. But after starring as Jesus, mainstream opportunities reportedly slowed down dramatically. Caviezel later claimed that Hollywood insiders quietly pushed him aside after the movie's release. According to him, Mel Gibson even warned him before filming started. Caviezel said Gibson called him shortly after offering the role and reportedly told him, "You'll never work in this town again." Even knowing the risks, Caviezel accepted the role because of his personal faith. Years later, he continued defending the decision publicly and insisted he had no bitterness toward Gibson. During speeches, Caviezel often told audiences that Mel was flawed like everyone else and needed prayers instead of hate. But the chaos surrounding the Passion of the Christ was only the beginning. A few years later, Mel Gibson's private life exploded into an even bigger scandal that rocked Hollywood behind the scenes. By 2010, Mel's personal relationships were dominating headlines almost as much as his movies. Despite remaining one of Hollywood's most recognizable stars, his off-screen life had become surrounded by non-stop drama, public arguments, and damaging stories that kept feeding tabloid coverage year after year. Reports now claimed Mel was once again dealing with heartbreak after splitting from longtime partner Rosalind Ross. Insiders alleged the breakup hit him hard and that he had fought to save the relationship behind closed doors. Still, people close to him reportedly believed he had no plans to step away from dating anytime soon. Sources connected to celebrity media claimed Mel openly discussed wanting to find a younger partner and continue expanding his already massive family. By that point, he was already the father of 9 children from multiple relationships, making his personal life one of Hollywood's most talked about stories. Mel shared 7 children with his first wife, Robin Moore, before their nearly 3-decade marriage ended in divorce in 2009. Soon after the separation, he entered a new relationship with Russian songwriter and pianist Oksana Grigorieva. At first, everything appeared happy in public. The couple welcomed a daughter named Lucia, and many believed Mel was starting a completely new chapter in his life. But behind the scenes, serious problems were reportedly already building fast. Then came 2010, when the relationship completely collapsed in explosive fashion. Their breakup quickly became one of Hollywood's biggest scandals after Grigorieva filed for a restraining order and publicly accused Mel Gibson of domestic violence. Suddenly, private recordings, legal disputes, and shocking headlines completely took over the entertainment industry, pushing Mel into one of the darkest chapters of his entire career. Things got even uglier when private audio recordings from Mel Gibson's arguments with Oksana Grigorieva leaked online. Suddenly, the public could hear the actor shouting aggressive insults during heated fights, and the backlash exploded almost overnight. Even though Grigorieva later denied leaking the recordings herself, the damage to Mel's reputation was already spreading across Hollywood at full speed. As the controversy intensified, Mel eventually addressed some of the accusations publicly. During an interview, he admitted that he slapped Grigorieva once during an argument. However, he strongly denied claims that he seriously injured her. According to Gibson, the confrontation happened while Grigorieva was holding their young daughter, and he claimed he became scared for the child's safety during the chaotic situation. Mel insisted he never punched her or caused major physical harm. He also pushed back against allegations involving damaged teeth, claiming a dental veneer had simply fallen off during the incident, and that there had been no major visible injuries at the time. Still, the scandal completely consumed celebrity news for months, dragging both sides into a long and exhausting legal war. The custody battle quickly turned bitter as lawyers fought over parenting rights, financial settlements, and confidentiality agreements. Reports stated that Mel originally agreed to pay Grigorieva $750,000 as part of their settlement, but later she reportedly lost a large portion of the deal after violating confidentiality terms by discussing their past publicly in interviews. After years of chaos, Mel eventually entered a new relationship in 2014 with equestrian and screenwriter Rosalind Ross. The relationship seemed far calmer than his previous public romances, and in 2017, the couple welcomed a son named Lars. For a while, it looked like Mel had finally found stability again, both personally and professionally. Around the same period, his Hollywood comeback slowly gained momentum thanks to Hacksaw Ridge. The war drama earned critical praise and won multiple Academy Awards, helping Mel step away from years of industry backlash connected to his earlier controversies. Mel and Rosalind stayed together for over a decade, and fans even saw his younger children appear beside him during recent red carpet events. But by late 2025, reports confirmed the relationship had ended, leaving Gibson single once again and dealing with another painful breakup. Then came another heartbreaking chapter. Reports surfaced claiming Mel was devastated over the death of actress Nadia Fares, his former co-star from On the Line. According to Entertainment Insiders, the two had formed an extremely close connection after working together, with some outlets even speculating their friendship had become romantic behind the scenes. Tragically, Nadia later passed away after reportedly being found unconscious near a swimming pool at a luxury fitness club in Paris. She was rushed to the hospital and later died following cardiac complications. The shocking news reportedly hit Mel extremely hard because people close to him claimed he deeply admired her kindness, elegance, and emotional warmth both on and off set. Friends described Mel as completely crushed by the sudden loss. The tragedy became even more emotional because Nadia had reportedly dealt with serious heart-related medical issues in the past. For Gibson, it was another devastating personal blow during a period already filled with public scrutiny and emotional stress. Even after all the setbacks, Mel reportedly remained determined to keep moving forward. People close to the actor claimed he often spoke about wanting to follow the example of his father, Hutton Gibson, who lived beyond 100 years old. Mel allegedly believed he still had more life to live, more films to make, and more chances to rebuild happiness on his own terms. But just as his reputation slowly began recovering, the scandal that would define his public image forever came crashing into his life. Everything changed during one late-night traffic stop in Malibu back in 2006. On July 28, 2006, shortly after 2 a.m., a sheriff's deputy named James Mee reportedly spotted Mel speeding down the Pacific Coast Highway at nearly 87 miles per hour in a 45-mile zone. The deputy pulled him over immediately, and things escalated fast from there. After administering a breathalyzer test, authorities recorded Gibson's blood alcohol level at 0.112%, well above the legal limit. The moment he was arrested for driving under the influence, one of Hollywood's biggest public relations disasters officially exploded into headlines around the world. According to police reports from that night, Gibson made a series of offensive remarks while being processed after the arrest. The incident triggered immediate outrage across Hollywood and drew criticism from major religious organizations, entertainment figures, and advocacy groups worldwide. A few months later, Gibson sat down with Diane Sawyer for a major interview on ABC News to publicly address the scandal for the first time. During the conversation, Gibson apologized for his behavior and described his own comments as disgraceful. He blamed the outburst on intoxication and admitted he was deeply ashamed of what happened. Mel told Sawyer he was trying to repair the damage caused by his actions and insisted he never wanted to become the type of person people now viewed him as. The interview quickly became tense when Sawyer questioned him about the wave of Hollywood executives and public figures who openly demanded studios stop working with him. Gibson admitted the backlash hurt him deeply because he understood that many people felt offended and frightened by his words. At the same time, he acknowledged there was little he could do to instantly repair public trust. Despite everything, Mel insisted he would never stop making movies because he had always relied on himself creatively rather than depending on Hollywood approval. He also admitted he understood his career could disappear at any moment. Gibson said he hoped his future actions would eventually convince people he was not driven by hatred, but he also recognized he could not control how the public viewed him moving forward. The legal consequences arrived quickly. By August 2006, Gibson chose not to contest the charges and pleaded no contest to misdemeanor drunk driving charges. A judge sentenced him to probation and ordered him to complete an alcohol rehabilitation program as part of the punishment. During the interview with Sawyer, conducted about 2 months after the arrest, Gibson claimed he had completely stopped drinking alcohol since the incident. He openly called alcohol a poison and admitted sobriety remained a constant struggle every single day. Mel spoke candidly about addiction, explaining how difficult relapse can be even after years of staying sober. He described alcoholism as something that could quietly return without warning, saying a person can stay clean for years before suddenly falling back into destructive habits again. He explained that recovering from addiction required constant support from family, friends, and faith. According to Gibson, surviving those moments depended on having people around willing to pull you back before things spiraled completely out of control. This was not the first time Mel had publicly discussed substance abuse issues. He revealed that he had struggled with alcoholism and drug addiction years earlier before eventually relapsing again shortly before the 2006 arrest. Gibson described relapse as something impulsive and dangerous, where one bad moment can suddenly undo years of discipline. Unfortunately for Mel, the arrest reopened older allegations and stories connected to his past behavior. In 2010, actress Winona Ryder gave an interview discussing an uncomfortable experience she claimed happened years earlier at a Hollywood party while Gibson was intoxicated. According to Ryder, Gibson allegedly made offensive comments during the interaction involving both her and one of her friends. She said the encounter deeply disturbed her and stayed in her memory for years afterward. Ryder later repeated the same story again in another interview years later, reigniting media attention around Gibson's past controversies. Gibson's representatives strongly denied Ryder's claims and accused her of misrepresenting events. The dispute quickly turned into another public battle of statements and denials between both sides. Ryder later responded publicly, saying she believed in forgiveness and personal growth but stood by her account of what she remembered happening during that party. She explained that accountability and honesty were important parts of healing and moving forward. Even years later, the exchange remained one of the many controversies attached to Mel Gibson's complicated Hollywood legacy, a career filled with incredible success, personal battles, public scandals, and non-stop attempts at redemption.